Welcome to another insightful episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. In this podcast, Mary Catherine Johnson and Evan Johnson highlight the successes and struggles of parents in business. They share how to be the example of success in entrepreneurship to foster the same in your child, and so much more. Are you ready to power up?
Hey everybody, welcome. I'm here with my incredible co-host / mom, Mary Catherine Johnson, as always. And we have a very exciting guest today. Bryan Falchuk is here, and we are very excited. Bryan, welcome.
Thank you for having me on.
Can't wait.
Yes, we are very excited. So let's go ahead and start off with making sure everybody's on the same page. Everybody listening, because I'm sure that there are some listeners who might not know you up to this point. So let's make sure we're on the same page. Tell us, who are you and what do you do? And do you have any kids?
So I'll go in the reverse order, but
okay.
Yes, I do. I have a son who is just entering teenagehood. So our house has changed a lot. But I guess we'll get into all that. I'm Bryan Falchuk. I am trying to figure out the most succinct way to say what the heck I do or what I am, which interestingly, are kind of the same thing. I'm an author, speaker, and coach, and I try to help people and businesses overcome what they're facing and actually achieve what they wish that they had. I guess that's kind of, I think I did okay with that, actually. I should write that down.
Yeah, there you go.
I have two really different worlds that I operate in. And so, but I realize there's a similarity. There's a whole life coaching personal side, but I also do it with the insurance industry specifically. So I'm like, do I tell the same story twice? But I think it's the same thing, just trying to help people or companies overcome what's holding them back.
That is a really beautiful way to say that, because we don't need to talk about making money or creating success or any of that stuff, because I just did a post. So perfect. I just did a post this morning about the walls that hold us in, we create. So yeah.
100%. Either we create them directly or indirectly by allowing them to stand when we could take them down.
Yeah, exactly. And so, that's a perfect segue into this whole concept of this podcast, because Evan and I have had many conversations about this as he and his little brother, Riley, as they see their friends around them and the opportunities they have or the opportunities they don't think they have, the ones they embrace, the ones they reject. Really, we as parents have an opportunity to hopefully keep the walls down that we've already broken through, so that our kids can start a little further ahead, right, than we did. That's kind of my number one goal in life.
Yeah, right. Every generation gets to start from a further ahead starting place.
Hopefully. Yeah. So in that vein, with your son going into teenagers, fun times ahead, but it gets better.
Yes.
That's all I got to say. But actually, I was really lucky. I'm sure Evan will tell his own story about it, but I really, really lucky. Evan didn't go through the whole rebellious. We tease about that all the time.
What do you mean? I was a crazy teen. Absolutely crazy. Sometimes I didn't go to bed at 8:30.
I go to bed at 8:30 if I could. I don't know what that makes me, but
almost as crazy as I was.
There you go.
Yeah. He definitely loved sleep. He definitely loved. It was amazing. But really, from entrepreneurship standpoint, they were very open to those possibilities, and it was just so fun. It really was fun to be able to provide opportunities for them. So let's kind of find out with your son, is he part of your business at all, and what have you done to try and expose him to this world?
Yeah, well, so I was actually remembering the first way he got into it was I was at this health and wellness expo kind of place. My book Do a Day had just come out, and I was exhibiting there and trying to rope people in, talk to them about the idea and maybe sell a few books in the process. And he and my wife showed up towards the end of it, and he was probably, gosh, this would have been maybe 2017, I guess. So he was still pretty young. I mean, he's young now still. He's not an old man yet, but he was, single digits, elementary school. And he, like, no fear, he just grabbed a couple of copies of the book and started like walking around the floor just in front of my booth, but like shouting like, "Get your do a day books." And I was like, I don't know that that's the best sales pitch, but I love it. Like, that is everything. And it just, so I don't think he sold any, but he certainly was part of the act back then. Through, no push from me at all. He just took that on himself. But more recently, it's really interesting in the pandemic. This is sort of take your kids to work day times, a month and a year and a half. And in that process, my wife is part-time, has her own business at home. She does health coaching. And then I was building my business. I've been an employee for years and doing coaching on the side, but I went full force, full time into it. And so he got to watch all of that firsthand. And there's a few ways he's directly been involved, and then indirectly, just sort of by osmosis, watching it happen. And I've noticed, actually been reflecting on this lately, how he is acting like a little entrepreneur, although he's taller than his mother now, so he's not that little. But it's summertime. He did one of these virtual camps playing Minecraft or something like that. And so he took it upon himself to develop a concept for another virtual camp for a different game. And he signed up. Like, I'm thinking like, oh my God, no one's going to sign up for this. Like, kids are doing different things. Like, it's going to crush his heart, when like no one's interested. He has to run 3 different sessions of it now because, scheduling and when kids are available, but he's got like 3 or 4 kids per session. Which I think is all a scam just to be able to play the game more. But he did all of this himself, and that blew my mind. So like, I wish he wasn't doing it. I would rather see him do something more active, but I also am kind of in awe of it. And I wonder, I hope some of it is just from watching his parents sort of hustling, trying to build something themselves. And that's what he did. So I can't fault him for that. I think it's pretty amazing. Great skills and great drive to have to serve him through life.
That is pretty amazing. I could say it's definitely a lot of it comes from just watching it, right? Because I feel like a lot of parents, I'm not a parent, obviously. Well, I guess it's not obvious at this point. I'm 22, so I guess I could be a parent, but I'm not.
Get the beard. Could happen.
Yeah, it could happen. It could happen. But I feel like a lot of people.
It can't.
Sorry, I realized after I said that.
It can't happen.
Oh,
no,
me
not
saying
an
it
option.
it could biologically happen. I'm not
Yes.
having a child in the near future. Well, you're good. Don't worry about it. But I feel like a lot of parents try to like directly like teach the kids things, which is obviously great. Teaching things is good. But I mean, I feel like I attribute a lot of my entrepreneurial tendencies to just, my mom was the one who was home. And while she was home, she was doing business entrepreneurial stuff.
Yeah.
And so my brother and I were, watching cartoons or whatever we're doing. And then there's mom doing, working in, what would one day become my bedroom. And so, and so, so I have a feeling that is something that definitely impacted your son to do what he's doing. I could also say that you can play Minecraft and be successful.
You can or cannot?
You can.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Oh, heck yeah.
Just ask Dan TDM. That's the other thing is like, now I know all of these YouTubers, and I mean, not personally, I wish, but.
And it's not even that. I mean, the next thing that's coming up that Evan knows that I've talked to him about, because he has one friend that's just like crazy. Yeah,
I say that because my friends and I still play Minecraft and I'm 22.
Yes. Yeah, but there are opportunities actually, especially with this whole metaverse that's coming and NFTs and blockchain, that they're actually looking at building universes, building virtual houses, virtual communities that they're selling via NFTs. And they're looking for kids or young adults who are really good at Minecraft.
Yeah. It's it reminds me of Second Life, which I didn't really understand at the time, and I don't even know if that's still around.
I don't think so.
But there's a number of things that's kind of like maybe a bit ahead of their time. I don't know that necessarily would have done well right now, but like like we're sort of trending in that direction then.
Yeah.
Like create something in a virtual world.
Yeah.
There's a financial aspect to it. I mean, brands like the company I worked for had an island in Second Life, and I was like, what is that for?
Yeah.
But fast forward, yeah, maybe there's something there. Maybe it's not about brands, but it's about the transaction and the experience. And
The experience.
anyway,
That's
yeah.
really what it is. Yeah. So these skills will definitely serve him. And the fact that he has seen, the thing that I'm impressed with is he saw a virtual camp already.
Yeah.
And then he just took what he saw and replicated it
Yeah.
for his own.
Yeah.
That you got to foster that. And especially with the fact that he did it with something that he's passionate about, that lights him up.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know whether he charged these other kids, right? Or if it's just kind of getting together. Yeah. But that's the next step, right?
Yeah.
Once he realizes how to do that. And what I tried to get Evan with, which wasn't really what lit him up and wasn't something he wanted to do. But one of the things that I was thinking back when he was in high school and he started in marching band, I think he was probably probably sophomore or junior in high school with marching band. And there were kids in middle school that, had no clue. They might have maybe went with their brothers or sisters into marching band if they did, or they were brand new to this whole music situation in high school. He could have easily done an online course to help kids prepare for marching band coming from middle school. And he was in high school. So that's all you have to be is a little ahead. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So those skills are incredible to have. So, but you were telling us something too, where he actually participated in something you're doing. Yeah. And he's actually making money now. Yeah.
So, one of the things that when the pandemic first hit, we're like, what are we going to do to keep him busy? And his school wasn't doing a lot. It was elementary school still. So they were sort of, I will say they were blowing it off and sort of like, oh, these years don't matter. So whatever, it's a few months. And there was a little bit of content, but we have, friends whose kids had much more structure and rigor to it. And we wish that he did, but, luckily he had his own computer. So we could get him like engaged with other content that way. And, gotta love Apple. They've got all these free creation tools built into the computers that they sell. And so I was like, why don't you fire up GarageBand and play around? Like he's loved music. He's always been very musical. He picks up instruments really well. He heard a song on the radio, and then he had like a little keyboard thing we got him years ago. He could just start playing it, which blows my mind. So I'm like, why don't you mess around with GarageBand and like there are these loops and like see if you can make some music. And he was really getting into some of the more like electronic music in these games that he plays. And so next thing we know, he's produced like 5 or 6 tracks. 2 days later, he's got a whole album. And he's like, yeah, I want to start selling them. And it never would have occurred to me, but because of his exposure on the gaming side, he started to hear about all the ways Spotify, like he had a Spotify account I didn't even know. A free one at least. So we find a way to start putting them out, and I'm listening to it and actually actually it's not my style of music, but some of the stuff's pretty good. And the more he made, the better he got. And so in my business, I had a podcast that I retired. I was launching some new books, and I was like, I should really have a podcast tied to these books to, help grow that. And I had a friend who was a musician who did the background music for my first podcast. And I didn't really want to go that route again. Nothing against my friend, but I said to my son, it's like, do you have a track I could use to just be like during the intro and the outro and the promo stuff? Like I could just play his background. And he's like, yeah, I'll give you some options tomorrow. And so like he comes in with 2 or 3 tracks that would be honestly, like, I think these are actually really good for background music because they're not too much, but they're not too like down. And there's a good mix of kind of energized, but at the same time, not that it would overtake the content. His name on all these platforms is Upbeat Music. So I'm like, it might be too much, right? But he actually spotted stuff with really good balance. And he's like, and I can take out this part so that, because some of them like it builds too much. So he created a couple of custom versions of one of his tracks that just fits perfectly. And of course, with all the editing I've been doing for the podcast, like the song is stuck in my head. I just have that that sound stuck in my mind now. But he's done the background music for my podcast. And I give him a little shout out. It's like, at the end of the video one, it shows his little logo and it's like music courtesy of Upbeat Music. And, there's links to his Spotify and Apple Music and all that. But lo and behold, he's made a few bucks off of streaming now. And he's got like several people who are regular monthly streamers of his music. And that it just blows my mind. That's awesome. I don't think I even have as many people as are regular downloaders of my podcast yet, but maybe I need him to start advertising me and his music. We got to go the other way around. But I think that's really cool. And so my wife has been talking about a podcast, and I think she's feeling left out. She's like, could you do a track for me? He's like, yeah. So whether the selling the albums is a path or doing audio and music for other media, it's put some thoughts in his head, and he gave me longer cuts of it so I could have a longer undertone. It really blew my mind. And he was 11 when he did this the first time, maybe 12, but that's pretty cool. And I'm just thinking what was I doing at his age? Because I think it involved a couch and some Oreos or something, but it wasn't monetizing my father's business or anything. So good for him.
But that's it. That's exactly why we're talking here, because not only do we as parents have to figure out how we balance this whole thing and be parents and also entrepreneurs at the same time. It's, I think that word balance doesn't even really exist. It's just a matter of choices at any one given moment. But then we go beyond that, and we really do have an opportunity. And whether you planned it or not, same with me, I did not plan it this way. I had no foresight whatsoever in this whole process, but the opportunity presented itself. There was a skill that he had, and you were like, hey, can I use that skill? You want to use me and my business as an opportunity to showcase that skill. And now you can take that and offer it to others.
Right.
And that's exactly like Evan, his story and how he started with podcast production, the same exact concept. But I think the whole point of this that I want to show with these two examples, both Evan and your son, is see a natural talent or a natural skill or a natural inclination where they're kind of drawn to. Not that Evan was drawn to necessarily podcast editing, but he was drawn to making some extra money and learning a new skill, right?
Yeah.
And so find out from parents, those listening, watch, just pay attention. And put the two and two together, because that's kind of where we come in as parents. We can see, we've been there. We can see what opportunities might be there, and then give your kid that has a particular tendency or a skill an opportunity to showcase it or use it in your business. And you never know where it can start. Like you said, it could be it could be, specific music. It could be albums. It could lead to, who knows where, the artistic side or the business side or both.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I think how we engage with them in that capacity is really critical. We talked about sort of just observing instead of let me sit you down and teach you about business, learning that way. But also when I engaged with him about the music, it wasn't this is my little boy and he's making music for me. And it was he's a music producer. This is his craft. He's created, it's his work. I need to engage with him that way. So it wasn't adversarial negotiating kind of thing, but it was also, I think, more mutual respect than daddy needs some music. Yeah. And part of it's he's getting a little bit older, and he definitely appreciates that different, he stopped calling us mommy and daddy a few years ago, which my wife still tries to override. But it was meeting him at his level in his craft and respecting that versus, the sort of not you report to me, but I'm your father. So I'm going to take this, and trusting his judgment in it, because he definitely has a better ear for this stuff than I do.
Yeah. And then the next thing that comes, and I'm sure you did this as well, is when we do have to, because this is still your business, right? There might be times when you need to have them make some edits. Maybe something doesn't quite fit, right? Yep. And I've done this with Riley a little bit more because Riley was more on the artistic side of my business. He was creating, animations or graphics or videos. And so I would have to go and talk about some edits that I might want him to make.
Yeah.
And to be able to approach that subject where you don't bring up the automatic rebellion, right? is a little more nuanced, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely something you still have to protect your business and protect your clients, but at the same time, teach them the fact that, yes, this is your craft. Yes, this is your music. But once you start selling it, you kind of have to adapt it to who you're selling it to because they're
Yeah.
paying you for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't really have that much of that, did we, Evan? Because the only thing was, if I wanted something done at a different time or, done in a different way. But other than that, you just pretty much took it and did it.
I have always been very, very much just let me do it and then I'll do it and then it'll be done by the time you need it to be done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As long as I know how to do that thing, I have always preferred doing stuff by myself, for sure.
Yeah. And that's another thing. So we've talked to other parents on this show where, they've tried to, it's almost like they tried to give their kid a full-time job, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, you got to do this, 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 and this. And it's like, their job is now being in school, being a kid. So especially with what you did and what Evan and Riley do, it really is great because you can give them a task and say, it just needs to be done by this date and time. I
Yeah.
don't care how you do it, when you do it, if you do it at midnight the night before or 3 weeks in advance, as long as it's done by this date and this time. And the autonomy, the flexibility, the confidence in their ability to do something and responsibility, it really helps build that, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that served me really well is being able to manage my work and my delivery. And I don't think I've really had an issue with like coming through when people needed me to. It's more like, was I careful enough and go slow enough versus just getting it done. But even that, those are valuable lessons. And he's been learning that too, less on the work side than the school side. But he's cut from the same cloth as me. It's like, I just want it done. So I'm just going to do it. And like, oh, when did you look at the final product? Cause like, this isn't spelled right. And, and like, you see it when you do it, when you rush it and it seems fine. And then when that person hands it back to you with all the red marks on it, you see all those red marks too. You see all the errors and you're like, I literally looked at this and it looked perfect. And now it's clearly not. I don't understand how I missed that. So I think he's got a little bit of the same kind of review-itis that I had. It's not an issue in his music at all, but schoolwork and things like that. So learning the lesson to slow down a little bit, which I definitely learned in school, but I don't think I realized how much that translates to work until I needed to learn the lesson in work. And luckily it came early enough when I was an intern. Like summer internship. I had one internship that was unpaid after my freshman year in college, and then I had a retail job that I could actually make some money in. But I had to send these pitch letters to editors at different media outlets to do an interview with the CEO of this company I was working at. And I was like, I had a spreadsheet and I matched the names and all that, and made sure everything was right. And I double checked them, and they went out, and then my boss got one of the letters sent back to her with a note. And so she brought it to my attention, and it was like to a guy named Philip or something. And I clearly refer to him as a woman throughout. And this is back in the 90s. So like, pronouns and gender identity, like that wasn't a thing yet. It's clearly a man, clearly referring to him as a her. And it was like, how could I have done that? I looked over everything. Well, obviously I didn't, or I didn't do it carefully enough. So, that was the last time I had to learn that lesson, but it's important to have anyway. So he's fine with the creative stuff, but I want to make sure when it comes to something where professionalism and attention to detail matter even more. And it's not just his art, where there's always that argument that like, well, this is how I wanted to create it.
Yeah.
That he's aware of that too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a balance, isn't it? I mean, we don't want to give them too much responsibility, make them grow up too fast. But at the same time, especially when it's your business and your clients, and this is your revenue source, then you obviously have to make sure it's done a certain way.
Yeah. And if he's ever his own boss, or, I'm a sole proprietorship of my own advisory business, like my image is my business, is my product, is my reputation. Like it's all 100% interwoven.
Yeah.
So if one of those things is off, then the question is, well, what am I left with? Because they are like, my identity is my product. So it's, the stakes are even higher. It's not a risk for him hurting me, but it's more, I'm grossly aware of that, and how I present.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you on the college is a must side or college is an option side?
College is 6 years away side, so I'm not worrying about that right now. I haven't looked at it either way really, because it just has always felt like it's a natural progression in my, like, what I grew up in and all that. And I think you asking that now, I probably need more of a reckoning with myself over that. It's also, things are changing. And so while 6 years isn't that far away, it's also ages away when you look at other shifts that are going on. And so I don't know what the norm is going to be. I mean, when I was coming out of, I have a master's, when I was going into my master's, there was talk about whether that becomes the new norm. And, so I was thinking like, oh, this is a differentiator, this will help me. And then there's this whole discussion of like, or it actually doesn't make a difference because that's where the bar is now. And I think on the back of the pandemic, certainly enrollments were down. The cost of higher education is seriously being questioned, as it should be, and the value of it. And so there could be a really strong reckoning. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that graduate degrees are a must. I mean, there are certain fields where, yeah, like to be a lawyer or something, fine. But then the question has certainly been raised around college. And so am I going to say I have the answer, or I went to it, so he will go too? Or I'd love to see him go, because I think learning is beautiful. And I think the structure of college versus high school, depending where you go and how you engage in it, can be unbelievably helpful to the development of an individual. But it's just that it's an individual. And so there is no set answer of, oh, that person needs 4 years to grow more and that person doesn't, or we don't know. So I would assume he will probably go to college, but we're not even on the path to the bridge that we have to cross yet.
Well, I know Evan has some ideas on that, and because he just experienced it.
Well, I could talk about college. That's a whole other conversation. But I tried the whole college thing, and I just, I'm already an entrepreneur, so I ended up dropping out because why would I need to go to college to get the thing that I already have? I already have the thing that college is supposed to get you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm definitely a believer that college is, it's a means to a goal that someone would have.
Yeah.
It's not just a thing that you do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That you like have to do.
Yeah. I think there's so many factors that go into it. And I certainly, when I was going, it wasn't even a decision. It's just, that's what you do.
Yeah.
And it was definitely the right thing for me. But I got out in 3 years and staying for the fourth, which everyone's like, you're an idiot, you should be staying. They're like, well, you're smart because you're graduating early, but you're an idiot. Best years of your life. That was the wrong answer for me.
Right.
Absolutely the wrong answer for me. And getting out early was a better move. Plus then the economy tanked. So it ended up being a really good move, because like none of my original class had an easy time getting a job. But I don't know. And I think it would be wrong of me in a lot of ways to say what the answer is for him right now or in 6 years. That's something I hope that he's open and mature and ready to think through that and have that conversation mutually, taking insight in all directions. And more importantly, I hope whatever he ends up deciding is the right path for him, and I'll be supportive either way.
Yeah. And of course it'll be the right path for him, because he'll make it at the time with your help and with the information he has at the time of who he is. But I'll tell you, if you've already listened and observed and helped him utilize some of these skills the way you have, you'll only do the same thing when college options come along. And that really, my husband and I were of opposite opinions on this. And I'm totally on the side of, if it works, great. If it doesn't, fine.
Yeah.
If you have something you want to do, like again, Evan, he was very much, I don't really know what I want to study. I don't really know what I want to do. It was just to do it.
Right. So
And
we're just going to throw away the money every year.
yeah, and that just wasn't right. Whereas Riley was specific, he wanted to learn animation and all that stuff. And so there was a specific goal. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. He researched the colleges that would be best for that. And even with that, he ended up quitting within 6 weeks. Mainly because he was offered a job that was going to be the same job that he would have tried to go after he graduated.
Yeah.
So
you never know. Yeah.
So yeah, it's again, if you pay attention and advise on the individual the individual situation of your kid, you'll make the right advice. You'll give them advice, and they'll make the right choice at that time.
Yeah.
I really do believe that there is no must this or must that. That's why we're talking about entrepreneurship, not as you have to get your kid to be an entrepreneur, but as at least an option.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we have that option right now. Most of us didn't have that example. Many of us didn't have that example from our parents. So we had to kind of muddle through this whole thing. But yeah, it's an amazing experience. I've had a blast having my kids work with me in different capacities and helping them figure out who they were and how they fit into this whole thing. And now Evan has gone to the second stage already. That was his first business. Now he's working with me on this next business, and it's much more coaching and helping parents structure their business, actually coaching them through how they can look at their kids and help their kids flourish with skills that they can tap into that their business needs. So he's already on his second adventure at
That's
22.
Yeah.
It took me a long time.
Yes. So as we, begin to wind down the conversation, I know that my mom and I have a good question that we like to end it on.
Sure.
Would you like to do the honors, or would you like?
Go ahead.
Okay. So if you were to die tomorrow, what entrepreneurial legacy would you be leaving for your kids as an example that they can use as they grow into entrepreneurship themselves?
Yeah. Well, hopefully all the whole setup that I got built out here doesn't go to waste. So that's one thing. And I know he would go for my computer right away. Wow. I think the single most important thing that I've gotten from this experience actually goes back to the last job I had before doing this. Was I was running sales for a startup, and I've always felt the need to say, I do sales, or growth is what we call it, because that sounds nicer than sales. But I would always follow up what I do with, but I'm not a sales guy. Like, it was a short-term thing. Like, I was an advisor to the company. I joined for a period of time to help them grow. And then we hired a real salesperson. Fine. But if I wasn't actually a sales guy, they wouldn't still be in business. So clearly I was a lot better at it than I thought I would be going into it, or that I give myself credit for when I make the little jokes about it. But the reality is, like, actually, I was pretty good at it. It's exhausting. It's hard. I traveled incessantly, all that. But I got a huge amount out of it. My abilities from a networking, relationship management to get to something that is not to, just extract money from them, but to get to something that's of value and that they would want to pay you for and you would enjoy doing. That's a really invaluable skill. Without that role, I'm not sure what I would be doing right now, if I'd be able to sustain the hustle that is working for yourself and where you are the brand. That's, it's a really tough game. Any entrepreneurship is tough and there's lots of risk. When you're the product, it's like, it's almost that much more personal. That it's exhausting and unbelievably rewarding. Lots of highs and lots of lows. But I think being able to do that and to navigate that and to come up from the basement where I am every day and be a part of the family. And like, yeah, some days I'm really tired. Some days I'm less thrilled than other days, but to go at it. And for him to see that, I think that's the most important thing, is to see that like you can fight for something that you believe in, that is of value. You can do things that might take you out of your comfort zone and succeed at them. And what's important is that you go back for more. And, I've had a few friends in the industry and the insurance side of my work who have recently left their companies, and they're doing, the independent consultant thing, and they're reaching out for advice. And because I'm a little ways into the journey now. And so the hustle is the first thing that I talk about. And two of them today were like, thank you so much for validating what I've been feeling, because I'm kind of like, this is exhausting. Am I missing something? I'm working so hard, but I'm not getting anywhere. Like, I was like, no, this is what it is. And that's why it's really hard. And that's why it's not for everyone. And you don't know where the next paycheck will come from and all that kind of good stuff. But it does teach you a level of resilience and self-belief that becomes so critical in how you engage with others, not from a point of desperation, but from a point of, I hope where people get to is valuing yourself enough to know how to talk about yourself and what you can do for someone. And if that's what my son takes from what I'm doing in the basement every day, that would be tremendous, because I think that will set him up regardless of what he does, entrepreneurialism or otherwise. Not enough people really value themselves or know how to value themselves. And that's why we say things like, but I'm not really a sales guy. Like we put ourselves down, and that's not necessary.
Wow.
It's all about that example. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they see, that the kids see growing up. And it sounds to me like you said a pretty good one.
Oh, thank you. I should make him sit next to me sometimes.
That kind of negates what we just talked about now. Hang on. Have him listen to this podcast or say, hey, this might be a good podcast. We talked about you. He'll listen to it then.
I'm going to just say, watch me make some magic, and then flop. And be like, oh, because magic doesn't exist. Is that what it is, Dad?
Oh my gosh. That's too much.
Well, Bryan, for anyone listening who is interested in you and what you have to say, where can they find out more about you?
Yeah. So if you can learn how to spell my name, you can get to me. So if you go to bryanfalchuk.com, you can get everything, but it's bryanfalchuk.com. And that's where my books and my speaking and coaching and all that good stuff is at.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming back on. I so appreciate it. I'm so glad we were able to connect again and to, take this second generation journey together. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great fun. Thank you. And Evan, it's good to get to talk to you as well.
Yes, it was amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. Hopefully you came away with valuable tools you can use in your business, life, and relationship with your kids. If you want to hear more about our mission, or if you want more insights into cultivating your parent entrepreneur power, join our movement to make entrepreneurship more accessible to parents and their kids at parententrepreneurpower.com.